Lost media, broadcasts, camera tapes, movie scenes, and more that have vanished or been purposely destroyed. These are some of the most disturbing and unsettling cases of lost media in history.
The Blue Blazer, as we know, as Owen Hart, was going to make a very spectacular superhero-like entrance from the rafters, and something went terribly wrong here. Certainly, Owen Hart, a very serious situation here at this point in time, is being attended to by the EMTs. This is not a part of the entertainment here tonight. This is as real can be here.
On May 23rd, 1999, a tragedy unfolded live during WWF's Over the Edge pay-per-view event in Kansas City, Missouri. Owen Hart, beloved wrestler and younger brother of wrestling legend Bret Hart, was performing a stunt as his comedic superhero persona, the Blue Blazer. Hart would be lowered from the rafters of the Kemper Arena via a harness and quick-release mechanism. Just a few feet above the ring, he was meant to unlatch himself, fall clumsily, and land face first for comedic effect. But something went horribly wrong. As Owen dangled 78 feet above the ring, the release mechanism malfunctioned, causing the harness to unlatch early. Witnesses in the audience and behind the scenes reported Hart plummeting to the ring, chest first, onto the top rope, before flinging into the mat. Owen Hart suffered massive internal injuries, and although paramedics worked to save him, he was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. The audience at home didn't see the fall. At the time of the accident, a pre-recorded backstage interview with Owen, in character as the Blue Blazer, was playing. When the feed cut back to the live event, chaos had already erupted in the arena. WWF announcers Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler tried to maintain composure, explaining that there had been a serious accident while cameras deliberately avoided the ring. Jerry Lawler had left the announcer's table to check on Hart. When he returned, his expression said it all. Meanwhile, the event itself came to a halt for 15 minutes. WWF CEO Vince McMahon made the call to continue the event. For many fans, wrestlers, and even those in attendance, this decision felt like a gut punch. People were crying, shocked, and confused.
Owen Hart, I'm praying for you, buddy.
And I am too.
Damn it, Deborah, let's go. Owen, you're in our prayers, buddy.
Owen, we love you.
An hour later, Jim Ross delivered the devastating news live to the pay-per-view audience.
Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling. And I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
The broadcast continued. Vince McMahon's reasoning was Owen would have wanted the show to go on, but Owen's widow, Martha Hart, disagreed, later saying he f***ing wouldn't.
And so Kevin comes on and says, this later in the night, he said, JR, we're going to come back and do it on camera, you and King, and you need to give an update on Owen. Kevin had thought, I think, to this day, that Kevin thought that Vince had told me what the update was. Oh. So I hit the talkback button while we're in a video package, and I said, Kevin, I don't know what the update is. Here it comes back and said, JR, Owen's dead. And you're back in 10, 9. So I got like 10 seconds to say, what are you going to say? How are you going to? Lawler heard it too.
Yeah.
So we're looking at each other like, oh, God, we're going to do it on camera. We got to make this announcement. So that was no preparation.
Martha launched a wrongful death lawsuit against the WWF and the manufacturers of the harness. Her goal was to hold those responsible for what she described as negligence accountable. She has been outspoken about her belief that the stunt was unnecessarily dangerous and that her husband's death could have been prevented. Since the incident occurred during a live taping, the footage of his fall exists. It was confirmed years later by former WWF announcer Kevin Kelly, who stated that the footage is locked away in WWE's archives, marked as never destroy, view, or duplicate. It exists, but it's completely inaccessible. Martha Hart has worked tirelessly to preserve Owen's legacy, ensuring he is remembered not for how he died, but for the life he lived, a gifted performer, a loving husband, and a father of 2.
I'm out in the prime cut of the big green. Behind me is Ed and Rowdy, members of an up-and-coming sub-adult gang. They're challenging everything, including me. Goes with the territory. If I show weakness, If I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed. For once there is weakness, they will exploit it, they will take me out, they will decapitate me, they will chop me into bits and pieces. I'm dead. But so far, I persevere.
Timothy Treadwell, a 46-year-old grizzly bear enthusiast, activist, and documentarian, was a deeply misunderstood figure to many. For 13 summers, he lived among bears in Katmai National Park, filming over 100 hours of footage, often putting himself in dangerously close proximity to the bears. Timothy's passion for bears wasn't born out of a mere love for wildlife. He saw himself as their protector, a self-appointed guardian against poachers and anyone who might harm them. But to others, including bear experts, Timothy's behavior was reckless. He often treated bears as though they were his friends, giving them nicknames, speaking to them directly, and even getting close enough to touch them. This deep connection to the bears gained Timothy widespread attention. He was featured in interviews and television appearances, including an infamous spot on The Late Show with David Letterman in 2001.
Now, when you're with these grizzly bears, you're surrounded by them. They're very close to you. Is that how you live with them?
Yes, I always give them respect and lots of room because, you know, a grizzly's the boss out there.
But you interact with them?
It's important that every bear knows who I am and that I fit on their hierarchy if I'm to survive.
Is it going to happen that one day we read a news article about you being eaten by one of these bears?
No.
In October 2003, Timothy and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, ventured into Alaska's Katmai National Park. Amy, according to Timothy's diaries, was deeply uncomfortable around bears. Despite her fears, the couple set up camp near a salmon stream where the bears were actively feeding, a behavior common in autumn as they prepare for winter. But this year, food was unusually scarce, making the bears even more aggressive. Timothy's decision to stay later in the season was unusual. By this time, many of the bears he knew had already entered torpor, and unfamiliar bears from other areas were moving in. The couple initially planned to leave Katmai as they typically did around the end of September. They even stored their gear and prepared for their journey home to California. But a heated argument with an airline employee over a ticket change caused Timothy to abandon their departure plans. Instead, he convinced his girlfriend to return to the wilderness for one last week, partly to check on a specific female bear he had grown attached to. On October 5th, Treadwell made a satellite phone call to an associate in California, reporting no immediate issues with the bears. But by the following day, the situation had taken a horrific turn. Willie Fulton, an air taxi pilot, arrived at their campsite to pick them up and found the area eerily abandoned. A large bear lingered near the site, prompting him to contact local park rangers.
I tied up and I started yelling a little bit, "Tim, Amy," and no answer. And I caught a little tiny bit of movement up on the hill. So I'm like, well, it was windy. Maybe they just couldn't hear me or something. So got about 3/4 of the way up the hill and something just didn't feel right at all. Something seemed strange, and I'm yelling and no answer or anything. So I turned around and started coming back down the trail. As I got near the airplane, I just happened to turn around, and I turned around and looked, and pretty nasty looking bear that I had seen here before is just sneaking slow with his head down. Just the meanest looking thing, coming through the brush. And so I jumped on the airplane real quick and untied it and took off, turned around, flew over, just looked down and saw a human rib cage, that I knew had to be either Tim or Amy laying there. And so I circled around again, got really low, and tried to run him off just over and over again with the airplane. And every time I would come over, he'd just start eating faster and faster and crouch over this rib cage there, and just realized, wow, I was pretty close to getting eaten myself, is what I thought.
Upon investigation, rangers discovered the gruesome remains of both Timothy and Amy. Timothy's head, partial spine, and right forearm, still wearing a wristwatch, were found a short distance from the campsite. Amy's remains were partially buried, a behavior often exhibited by bears to cover their prey. A large male bear, later identified as Bear 141, was found guarding the site and was killed by rangers during the recovery operation. A second, younger bear, charged the team and was also put down. An on-site necropsy of Bear 141 revealed human body parts, including fingers and limbs, confirming it had consumed the couple. The younger bear, however, was scavenged by other animals before it could be examined. A video camera recovered at the site had captured audio of the attack. Though the camera's lens cap was still on, the microphone recorded the chaos. In a chilling 6-minute tape, Timothy's screams are heard as he yells for help. The audio captures Amy's attempts to intervene, telling Timothy to play dead, and even striking the bear in an effort to save him. The bear returns moments later and drags Timothy off into the forest, while Amy is left screaming. The 6-minute audio recording was recovered from the camera at the scene and handed over to authorities. Eventually, it was returned to Timothy's ex-girlfriend Jewel Palovak, who had been entrusted with much of his personal belongings. Werner Herzog, the renowned filmmaker, was given access to the tape during the production of his 2005 documentary, Grizzly Man. In one of the film's most memorable scenes, Herzog listens to the recording while wearing headphones. His face tells the audience everything they need to know about its content.
I hear rain and I hear, Amy, get away, go away. Can you turn it off? Julie, you must never listen to this.
I know, Werner. I'm never going to.
And you must never look at the photos that I've seen at the coroner's office.
I will never look at them.
Yeah.
They said it was bad. Now you know why no one's gonna hear it.
I think you should not keep it. You should destroy it.
Yeah.
I think that's what you should do.
Okay.
Because it will be the white elephant in your room all your life.
Jewel, however, chose to store the tape in a safe deposit box, claiming she has never listened to it herself and hopes she never will. Despite this, rumors of the tape's existence and even alleged leaks have persisted. In one of Timothy's final video recordings, he expressed unease about a particular bear he observed diving repeatedly into the river for scraps of salmon. Werner Herzog speculates whether this bear was the one that ultimately killed them. One supposed clip of the recording appeared online years later, purporting to capture the first 2 minutes of the attack. While some found it convincing, experts have dismissed it as a hoax. Candace Newmaker was born on November 19, 1989, in North Carolina. Candace's early life was shaped by neglect from her teenage parents. By the time she was 5, social services had terminated her parents' rights, separating the siblings and placing Candace in the foster care system. At age 7, Candace was adopted by Jean Newmaker, a single woman and nurse. On the surface, it seemed like Candace had finally found stability, but the relationship between Jean and Candace became strained almost immediately. Within months, Jean began taking Candace to a psychiatrist, citing issues with the child's behavior at home. According to Jean, Candace displayed troubling tendencies, including playing with matches and killing goldfish. Despite treatment with medication, Jean reported no improvement. Jean stumbled across attachment therapy, a pseudoscientific treatment designed for children with reactive attachment disorder. It was through this that she was referred to Connell Watkins, a practitioner in Colorado. Watkins lacked a professional license, as did her colleague Julie Ponder. Nevertheless, Jean paid $7,000 for a 2-week intensive therapy session, believing it would repair her bond with Candace. During the second week of treatment in a session known as rebirthing therapy, this controversial practice aimed to simulate the process of childbirth, with the belief that reenacting birth could help children form emotional connections with their caregivers. Candace was wrapped tightly in a flannel sheet, meant to represent the womb, and surrounded by pillows. 4 adults, Watkins, Ponder, and 2 therapeutic foster parents, Britta Clare and Jack McDaniel, pressed down on her with a combined weight of 673 pounds. Candace, who weighed just 70 pounds, was instructed to fight her way out of the sheet to be reborn. This, they claimed, would symbolize her willingness to bond with her adoptive mother, Jean Newmaker, who watched the session unfold from another room. From the start, Candace was struggling to breathe. She cried out repeatedly, saying, "I can't breathe, I'm going to die." Ponder responded to her with, "Go ahead, die right now." As the minutes ticked by, Candace vomited and even lost control of her bowels inside the sheet, but the therapist showed no signs of stopping. At one point, Watkins asked Candace if she wanted to be reborn, to which she replied no. Ponder responded, "Quitter, quitter, quitter." By this time, Candace had already gone limp. 40 minutes into the session, Watkins and Ponder unwrapped the sheet to find Candace unresponsive. Her fingertips and lips had turned blue, yet Watkins said, "Oh, there she is. She's sleeping in her vomit." It wasn't until Newmaker entered the room that CPR was attempted. Paramedics arrived 10 minutes later, but it was too late. Candace had likely been unconscious and not breathing for a significant amount of time. Medics managed to restore her pulse briefly, but she was pronounced dead the following day. The 70-minute session was videotaped in its entirety, and it became the centerpiece of the trial against Watkins and Ponder. Both Watkins and Ponder were convicted of reckless child abuse and sentenced to 16 years in prison. The therapeutic foster parents, Brita St. Clair and Jack McDaniel, accepted plea deals and were sentenced to probation and community service. Newmaker, who had been present throughout the therapy, was not criminally charged. The video of Candace's death remains in the hands of law enforcement and was never released to the public. Portions of the audio have been described in court transcripts and reports. In 1994, the movie The Crow was released. Directed by Alex Proyas, the film follows Eric Draven, a man brutally murdered alongside his fiancée, who returns from the dead with supernatural powers to take revenge. At the heart of the film was Brandon Lee, the son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee. On March 31st, 1993, the production of The Crow was nearing its end. Lee was on set, filming a scene where his character confronts a group of thugs. In the script, one of the villains, played by Michael Massey, fires a revolver at Eric as he walks into his apartment to find his fiancée being attacked. The gun Massey used was a real Smith & Wesson Model 629, repurposed as a prop. In earlier scenes, dummy cartridges, ammunition without gunpowder, had been used for close-ups to make the revolver appear loaded. These dummy rounds had been modified by the crew, but crucially they hadn't removed the primers. At some point, one of the primers was ignited, dislodging a bullet and lodging it partway into the barrel. This is a condition known as a squib load. When it came time to film the scene, the dummy rounds were swapped out for blanks, ammunition that contains gunpowder but no projectile. Blanks are designed to create the sound and flash of gunfire without firing an actual bullet. But with the squib round still lodged in the barrel, the blank had all the force needed to propel the stuck bullet forward. As Massey pulled the trigger, the bullet struck Lee in the abdomen. He fell to the ground, but to the crew, it seemed like he was still acting. When director Alex Proyas called cut, and Lee didn't get up, stunt coordinator Jeff Imada rushed to check on him and realized something was wrong. Lee was rushed to the hospital where surgeons worked for 6 hours to save his life, but the damage was too severe. Brandon Lee died on March 31st, 1993. He was 28 years old. An investigation ruled the shooting an accident, attributing it to negligence on set. Michael Massey, the actor who fired the gun, was deeply traumatized. He took a year-long break from acting and later revealed he never actually watched the movie. Brandon's mother, Linda Lee Cadwell, filed a lawsuit against the filmmakers, alleging negligence. The suit was settled out of court, with the details remaining undisclosed. Despite the tragedy, the production of The Crow continued. Through a combination of body doubles and early CGI, the filmmakers completed the movie. When it was released in 1994, it became a commercial success. Cameras were rolling during the fatal scene, meaning the incident was caught on film. According to director Alex Proyas, this footage was destroyed immediately after the investigation. Some crew members claimed the footage was never destroyed and that copies exist somewhere in private hands. One cameraman even alleged that he had a copy, though no evidence has ever surfaced to support this. Brandon had been planning to marry his fiancée, Eliza Hutton, just days after filming ended on The Crow. The quote he chose for his wedding invitations was,
"Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. And yet everything happens only a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, An afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it. Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20, and yet it all seems limitless.
This quote was put on his grave, alongside his father's.
What good is a fast car, a flash house and a gold-plated dunny to me? Absolutely no good at all. I've been put on this planet to protect wildlife and wilderness areas, which in essence is going to help humanity.
September 4th, 2006. The world was informed of the tragic death of Steve Irwin, also known as the Crocodile Hunter. Irwin was filming for a documentary titled Ocean's Deadliest. The weather had taken a turn for the worse, temporarily delaying production. Rather than wasting time, Irwin decided to film additional footage for his daughter Bindi's television series, Bindi the Jungle Girl. With his team by his side, Irwin ventured into the shallow waters of Bat Reef, near Port Douglas, Queensland. While snorkeling in chest-deep water, Irwin encountered a stingray. Irwin swam behind it, with the intention to film it swimming away. But no one expected what was about to happen. Stingrays are not naturally aggressive creatures. However, they are known to defend themselves when they feel threatened. And it's believed the stingray may have mistaken Irwin's shadow for that of a predator, possibly a tiger shark. The stingray reacted. Eyewitnesses, including cameraman Justin Lyons, described how the stingray propped up on its front and began striking with its tail. Its venomous barb pierced Irwin's chest multiple times. One of those strikes punctured his thoracic wall and pierced his heart. Irwin initially believed the stingray had only punctured his lung. He clutched his chest, likely unaware of the severity of his injuries. But as blood filled the water, it became clear to his team that the situation was serious. Crew members immediately pulled Irwin out of the water and onto their boat, and began administering CPR. Lyons kept recording due to a production rule imposed by Irwin that cameramen were not to stop recording if something took a turn for the worse, as it was these moments of genuine danger that gave Irwin's documentaries their edge. For over an hour, the team fought to save Irwin's life, but by the time they reached shore, it was too late. Paramedics pronounced him dead on arrival. According to Lyons, Irwin's final words were, "I am dying." Every moment of the attack, starting from the stingray's strike to the rescue efforts, was captured on camera. The recordings were handed over to Queensland authorities for review as part of the investigation into Irwin's death. Eventually, the tapes were returned to Irwin's family. According to multiple accounts, including statements from Irwin's wife, Terry, the family made the decision to destroy the footage. Despite this, there are rumors about the existence of copies. Some claim that fragments of the footage were leaked online, though these have never been verified and are widely dismissed as fake or unrelated clips. In the days following Irwin's death, at least 10 stingrays were found dead and mutilated on the beaches of Queensland with their tails cut off. It is speculated these were acts of revenge by Irwin's fans. Irwin's family and friends emphasized that such actions went against everything he stood for. That was the video. If you want more similar content, you can subscribe or check out this video that YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Thank you for watching.